Okay. Hello. Good morning from Australia. Uh, I am Sarah Firth, and this is Leela Corman, and we're going to have a chat about comics and whatever we feel like. Um,
Yes.
yes. So to kick off, I'd like to just say that I am dialing in from Wurundjeri country in Melbourne, Australia, and I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land and that sovereignty was never ceded.
And I would like to say that I am calling in from Providence, Rhode Island, the modern day United States, but it is really the land of the Narragansett Nation and the Niantic people. And not only is it not ceded, the Narragansett people are still here, as are all the other tribes, and still a robust part of the culture and land stewardship of this area. And that's me winging it a little bit on the land acknowledgement because I didn't like the one I just found. The one I just found was actually awfully casual. It said, this
Yeah.
is the one that I stumbled on I should have just pulled up my syllabus from RISD, but I found the University of Rhode Island one, and it says, the University of Rhode Island occupies the traditional stomping ground of the Narragansett Nation and Niantic people.
Stomping ground.
Come on, dude.
That's
It's their
very
land.
that's very odd language.
Very strange. It's very kind of unprofessional, if you
Yeah.
ask me.
Yeah. Well, I liked your acknowledgement just then. That was good. Um, yeah, so uh Leela, would you like to talk a little bit just to kick off, like about who you are, what you do, what's going on?
Sure. So I am a comics maker and painter, and lately also a professor, which is hilarious and great to me.
Also, aren't you in a
Uh,
band? Aren't you in a band?
I am in a band, yes. I'm
Oh,
in a band with two of the best musicians I have ever sung with, actually. Um, uh, they used to be in a band in Providence called Whore Paint.
yes.
A bunch of other bands too. I kind of too numerous to list, but I'm a newcomer to Providence, Rhode Island. I've only lived here for 5 years, and they've been here and been playing together for like 15 years. They've been here longer than that, but I mean, they've been like the two of them have been making music together for a really long time. So it's been really like I've had a couple of things just this week of like going to shows with the guitar player in my band and like just noticing like, wow, God, she knows everybody.
Mm,
It's a tiny town also, but it's yeah, I'm in a band.
that's cool. I love that. I love
And we're also like, we have a lot of commonalities too. We're both weightlifters.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I have been weightlifting. I do what's called Olympic weightlifting, which is a particular style that a lot of people have never heard of or seen, where you lift it high and fast. So it's different to powerlifting. Don't get me started. I'll go down a weightlifting hole, and people are here for comics, not sport.
I know.
What
You'd
things?
be
I'm
surprised how
trying to
many
U-turn.
cartoonists.
Ah!
It's okay.
Um,
Yeah, we can go back to comics, but I will just say there's like a secret cabal, I think, of cartoonists who lift.
You need to develop the strength to be able to draw for hours, because otherwise it hurts.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't always hurt you. It can hurt you. And the older you get, the harder pushing pencils becomes. Um,
Yes, it does.
so you need
And
to,
lifting paintbrushes also.
exactly. So you need to, oh, actually, this is a commonality. So, Leela, I consider you a painter in my mind. I don't know if you consider yourself a paint, like how you describe yourself, but I think that you make amazing paintings. I would call them paintings. And I recently had a hand injury and I took up painting with my left hand. And so I have this on my desk now because I usually don't paint as such medium wise. Um, and my paintings are really bad. But I've been enjoying, it's a very different process to inking in my experience. I mean, what do you think about that, Leela?
Well, first of all, I saw the paintings that you posted anyway, that you in the thing you sent me about going to the Yo-Yo Kusama exhibition and
Yeah.
then painting with your left hand. And they're so beautiful. And I see one kind of next to you over your shoulder too, a little
There's a
sliver.
snake.
Yeah. Um, I'm just amazed that you're able to do anything with your left hand. Like I have tried to do that and I mean it's like it's not my hand. Like it's not a part of my
Yeah,
body.
it feels like a different person. Um, so this is the day that I went in, sorry, trigger warning medical procedure. This is a left-handed drawing I did when I went into surgery.
That's
Um,
great.
and my favorite moment of being in the hospital was um, I got a icy pole. And they actually gave me two icy poles, but this is my, yeah, my left hand style. Um, so it's a little bit, and this is me trying to write. So it's very like, you know,
But
uh,
it's like it's
wobbly.
readable, you know.
This took
Those are
about an
living
hour to
things.
draw because I'm there going like, it's like that was one of the biggest issues with drawing with my left hand is that I would just get so frustrated because it's so profoundly slow because it's like a 4-year-old
Oh
drawing,
yeah.
you know?
Drawing
Um,
with a razor blade on a rock, you know.
yeah, it's just surprisingly taxing and I'd be really mentally tired because I'm like activating all kinds of brain pathways that are dormant or something. Um, yeah.
It's wild just to think about like this, your dominant arm is like this incredibly trained tool,
Mm,
you know? And
yeah.
I don't think of it that way. I think of my body as symmetrical for the most part. Obviously, human beings aren't really symmetrical,
No, no.
but you know, so I mean, I'm just amazed that you were able to do that. And I'm
Mm.
also chuckling at this. Just like I love the differences in totally inconsequential naming of objects between Australia and the US. Like icy pole is the cutest name for a popsicle. And I think I know what you're talking about. It's like
Yeah.
a juice flavored popsicle, like a fruit
Yeah, the ones
popsicle.
in hospital were lemonade. So they're like white and they're just made of ice on a stick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Pops lemonade popsicle, lemon popsicle.
Yeah.
Um, in the US, in any neighborhood that has a Mexican grocery store, you
Mm.
can get these Mexican popsicles called paletas that
Paletas.
are, yeah, they're like tropical flavored popsicles, like made of
Mm.
fresh tropical fruit
Yum.
sometimes. Oh, they're so good.
Yum. Do you put like spicy powder on those or not? Like
Uh,
I know that some Mexican fruit sweets like you put like a spice powder on.
oh, I think you're thinking, I'm not an expert, but you might be thinking of that amazing, like fresh fruits with like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know what it's called, but you can get
Yeah.
them at some taco trucks and
Yeah.
taquerias.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm on a mission this summer to go do that. It's like a huge cup of, at least here, I think if you're in Los Angeles or something, you can probably get a more diverse range of them. But the one I got here was like chunks of mango with tahine, this kind of spice
Mm.
blend on it, and a bunch of other things. And then it had these straws wrapped in tamarind paste
Oh
sticking out
yeah.
of it.
Tamarind.
It took
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it. That's it. Yeah, I've had that in Mexico and I c couldn't remember what it's called. And I was just like, this should be on all fruits at all times. And I was like, could you put
Totally.
that on a paleta? I guess you could in the comfort
You know
of
what?
your
You
own
could
home.
put anything, anything. You could
Yeah.
take an icy bowl and put tamarind or tahine or God, yeah.
Or Vegemite. I'm just going to do an Australian dive into Vegemite. Don't, that would be disgusting. I wouldn't do it.
I think
Have you
I
had
remember
Vegemite? Did you have Vegemite when you came to
do
Australia?
you remember that I totally scandalized all of you by making a peanut butter and Vegemite sandwich?
I blocked that out of my memory. What?
You
Do,
were all so horrified.
how did it taste?
I would say kind of underwhelming.
Yeah, yeah,
Not bad. Like if you think about, you know, the flavor profile of Vegemite, it's savory, umami, right?
yeah, yeah.
And you can make the case for that being good with peanut butter.
Mm-mm.
But I felt like one did not really enhance the other, but it was not bad.
It was underwhelming. So,
But worth it for all of the Australians in the room, i.e.,
what are you
everybody but
doing?
me, Tom, and T, and my daughter, being like, yeah, just I think just looking upon me with indulgent horror is how
Yeah,
I would describe
like this.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also like tell us how that is, but don't make us taste it.
Mm, mm. So for context, Leela was one of the master artists. So Leela and Tom came to Australia in 2015. They were the master artists for Comic Art Workshop, and we were on Maria Island, which is an ex-penal colony off Tasmania by boat. Uh, and this is where this uh, terrible incident happened. Um, but I think that's where I first met Leela. Uh, and I was familiar with your work, very impressed, slightly intimidated. But then when you were master art, I was about to say master artsering us. I was just like, wow, you and Tom are like next level um, educators, mentors. Like I was like, wow. Like I actually, this is a bit dorky to say, but I actually feel like I learned a lot about how to write from both you and Tom. Like you just had
Wow.
such great exercises and distinctions. And also the way that you talk about film and think about film and love film and how that language kind of translates into comics was really meaningful to me because I get quite inspired by film, I think, like as a I don't know if it directly feeds into what I do because what I do is not very cinematic, but definitely like the language around film and storytelling in film sometimes makes a little bit more sense to me than, prose or even comics. So, yeah, that was very enlivening for my brain. So, yeah.
Oh, I'm really happy to hear all of that. That makes me feel really good because I felt like God, I hope I have something to offer all these people because you were all such amazing artists already. And I learned so much from all of you. I was like,
Mm,
wow, the comic scene in Australia is really thriving and it was very revitalizing for both of us.
mm,
That trip
mm,
was life-changing for a variety of reasons.
mm.
Wait, I want to rewind for a second. So, you were talking about the former penal colony on Maria Island being the site of terrible incidents. I'm assuming you're talking about in the past, not during the workshop.
No, I'm just talking about that peanut butter and Vegemite sandwich.
Oh, not all of the people who were transported there
Yep,
and held in bondage.
yep. That is that pales in comparison. I'm very sorry, I don't actually mean what I'm saying, obviously. But yeah, I was referring to the sandwich. Yeah.
That was also where I discovered a very easy way to terrify an Australian,
Hmm.
besides putting Vegemite on a peanut butter sandwich.
Hmm.
To mention that there are bear habitats near your home in the
Bear.
US. Yeah.
That's
I don't think it was you. I
though.
think it was Pat and Josh who were like, bears?
Yeah,
What do you
it's
mean bears?
terrifying. See, that's the
You
thing.
guys,
People think, oh, Australia's so scary with snakes and spiders, but like they're little, you can stand on a chair or something. Whereas a bear, like that's hectic. A bear, a fox,
bears,
a
bears can,
wolf.
as with every other place where humans live, especially I think places where there's been a lot of colonizing,
Mm,
uh, humans encroach on animal habitat and the animals encroach back.
mm.
I've actually never seen a bear in the wild or in captivity. But I mean, they are around in the forests in North America, like everywhere, like in Florida, in New Jersey. Sometimes they come into people's backyards and use the pool, and I'm totally not
Wow.
kidding. I'll
Wow.
send you. But I mean, I got to Tasmania and I was like, man, you Australians, like you were like yanking my chain here about the dangerous fauna because all I see, like the apex predator on this island is this big and squeaks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when it and then it like its eating habits are to eat until it gets so full that its stomach is really distended, and then it lies on its back in the dirt with its belly up to the sun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a like that's how I model my life and how I eat is just eat till your tummy's full and have a lie down. But yeah, they're not that scary, really.
Azzy Devil style.
Yeah. I do remember having to save Chris Gooch, who's another comic artist that was at the workshop, from spiders because and they were harmless huntsmans, but he was very frightened and I had to come in with my little yogurt container and escort them outside. Um, spiders. I personally like spiders, but you know,
I could totally picture Chris Gooch being the person that had that reaction and had that experience. I don't know why. It's nothing bad, nothing, no shade. Just for some reason, I can totally picture this
him
happening.
not loving, yeah.
Huntsman spiders, like are they like some ones that are the size of your hand, kind of?
I think they weren't very big.
Pretty
I
big.
I think that well, look, if you're scared of spiders, you're scared of spiders. What can you do? Like, it doesn't matter. Um, but
Huntsman's not.
I actually want to go back to something that I said because I want to hear your answer, which is,
Yeah.
do you consider yourself a painter? Like, how do you self-describe? Because you work with paint and ink. How do you, yeah.
You know what? Yeah, I'm glad you brought us back to that. Thank you, because I went on
I'm
this
just so
long
cute. I'm
digression.
really curious. I'm just so curious.
Um, well, so I really do consider myself a painter right now. I mean, I think I called myself different things throughout my career too. But the thing is that I started out as a painter, and I started out wanting to be that for my career. I
Mm.
had a very early derailment due to a very cruel painting teacher who
Oh.
I will say the only thing I learned from her was how not to teach.
Mm.
I learned how not to um, fuck up the lives of very vulnerable people. Because when you are 19 years old, as I was in her class, you are very vulnerable. And now I teach people that age all the time, and I have for over a decade, and I feel like, they're in my hands. I have to be really careful with them.
Yeah.
But so I had a really early heartbreak with painting,
Mm.
and it kind of broke my path. Like
Mm.
I ended up on this weird, I just sort of for a while I couldn't find my footing again as an artist. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't even really stay in school. I was just kind of like bouncing around. Um, and I started making comics kind of in that period. And then I went back to school ultimately for illustration, which I did for a long time professionally and now just do not do anymore and don't enjoy at all.
Mm.
But when I started painting my comics, which gosh, I think that happened. Okay, so earlier in the year before I came to Australia. So that year was the
So
turning point year.
2015. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I started painting my comics again
Oh,
instead
wow.
of using black ink for them.
Ah,
And so I was just beginning to kind of feel that out when you met me. Uh,
wow.
Life changing. And it really did turn me back into a painter. And actually what I've been doing since I finished Victory Parade, the book that came out last year, which I totally hand painted,
Mm.
I've only been painting.
Mm.
I've been doing really huge paintings on paper and kind of smaller ones on canvas. Um, But in the intervening years, in between 2015 and now, I was doing all of these watercolor
Mm.
hand painted comics and feeling really like I really hit my stride
Yeah.
because bringing my painting side and my comics making side together made a kind of new art form for me that I was really pleased with.
Mm. I'm pleased with
So
it too. So
thank you.
I'm so happy. And it's so interesting to hear you say that you had this art school trauma because I remember talking with Finn McCabe and T Boy from Comic Art Workshop 2015, and they both had similar things of going to art school and basically being shamed for their style, what they were making, it wasn't right, they were shit. Same thing happened to me doing a sculpture degree. Like I have, art school trauma. And I think that part of that comes down to, like you've said, bad lecturers with particular styles. I feel like for me, there was a school of thought that you want to be tough on the students because making art and being an artist is tough. And you've got to like earn your chops, as we say here. And so like we had a lecturer that would come, like would be, molding or making out of clay, and he would come with a wire cutter and he'd just say that's shit and just cut people's work like that in studio. Uh, which wouldn't fly these days. And also in critiques, like people just saying to the students, like, your work is derivative, like, you're not adding anything new. I think you should give up this kind of language, um, which I don't know that it worked. It just broke a lot of hearts, you know?
Yeah, I don't think it works. I think that doing anything is tough. And I think while I would stress that there are different kinds of learners, I don't think that there's any pedagogical benefit to cruelty.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna write that
I
down.
think,
No pedagogical benefit to cruelty.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, what my personal feeling is a lot of that generation of teachers, yes, there was the same thing in the US and, the teachers who would take your work and rip it up,
yeah,
and, you know, tell you it was garbage and then tear it up, literally, physically tear it up.
yeah.
I think that, and so I had people who were taught by that generation of teachers.
Mm.
I also think that sometimes they feel competitive with students. And as a teacher myself, I can tell you, like, you cannot do that. That is poison.
Mm.
Like, the
Mm.
minute you start feeling like you're in competition with your students, something's gone very off the rails. And
Mm.
either you have to, like, to step back, make a very strong note that you are doing that
Yeah,
and prune that shit out of yourself,
yeah,
or stop teaching.
yeah, yeah,
But I mean, I would say now, at least where I teach, we talk about this amongst ourselves, and none of us feel like that's an appropriate way to teach.
yeah,
But we all know those teachers. And I think, at RISD for sure,
yeah,
that was probably the way, in the past,
yeah.
which is completely crazy. You know, for a teacher or any artist to say, well, you're not adding anything new, there's so much invisible criteria behind that statement.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I've been trying to interrogate that line of thinking in myself too. That idea that we always have to be reinventing things and making
Mm.
something new
Yeah,
is not necessarily useful for people.
yeah,
At the same time, I carry my own version of that. I just wouldn't take it out on a student. I
yeah.
mean, there's ways to say this doesn't feel very original,
Mm.
or like it seems like there's kind of some received wisdom here, and I'm curious about what you're drawing on, where some of your imagery is coming from. A
Yes.
lot of for students has to do, well, I know this isn't supposed to be a conversation about teaching. I have a lot to say about this because this is my day job
Oh
now.
no, I mean I'm here for this. Like I love this. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I just think you can, instead of telling students they're shit and they're derivative and should quit, tell students to fill their head with more interesting stuff, like introduce them to more art and film and books, and tell them to go find stuff that they're interested in, and
Yeah.
feed their heads with stuff. Don't expect them to come in. I don't, I've also been thinking a lot lately about how all the people I teach are making work from the perspective of people in their late teens to late 20s for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so all of that work is coming from processing their childhood,
Totally.
processing their adolescence. Neither here nor there, but it's something I've been thinking about a lot.
Yeah. I
Um,
feel like it's unfair to expect, like, my position with that is I feel like it's unfair to expect, 19, 20-year-olds fresh out of school straight into university to have a fully developed creative voice. Like some people do, but like at least in my experience, it took me decades to just sort of really understand myself and what I was saying and what I could do. And it like, yeah, it just seems profoundly cruel to me to say to someone that's younger. And obviously there are mature age students as well, but yeah, I just find it quite bizarre to have those expectations because I would think that you're trying to look for signal or promise in someone and be like, I can really see that your style is like this and you're, being derivative. I mean, that's negative language, but like it's deriving from this and like lean into that, but make it your own. Like, don't, but of course, people will kind of copy or follow in the footsteps of XYZ because they're still finding their voice. Like,
yeah,
anyway.
it's natural.
Yeah,
It's
I just
totally
find it
natural.
really bizarre.
I do
Um,
too.
yeah. But so
The,
another question I have, do you think, okay, and this is based on my experience, T and Finn's comments. Do you feel like you would have ended up making comics if your painting career had not been derailed?
that's a really good question. I genuinely don't know. I
Yeah.
really don't know.
Yeah.
Um, maybe, who knows? I
Mm,
feel like, um, I really loved comics. And I'm trying to think, was I reading? I think when I was trying to, just in the very beginning of trying to learn how to paint, I don't think I was really in a period of reading comics, but I read a lot of comics in high school before that. Love and Rockets and Raw were stuff I discovered right at the end of high school.
mm,
So already a really big influence on me. No, I think I was actually. I was reading Love and Rockets and Raw at that point too, and really loving all of that stuff and Mouse and kind of like early 90s American Underground kind of, well, I guess it would have been 80s stuff that I was reading at the time when I was in college in the early 90s.
mm,
But it really, really exploded. There was a big explosion here of underground, post-underground comics in the 1990s,
mm.
um, kind of throughout the decade. Like it just got more and more. So it might have been a natural evolution in that direction. What about you?
Yeah. Oh, I feel like I grew up with um, parents that highly valued the fine arts. And I think that I imbibed a certain kind of hierarchy from them around what is highbrow, what is lowbrow. And so I always enjoyed comics and read a lot of European comics like Asterix and Tintin. Um, but I felt like I had the hierarchy of like comics are lowbrow, don't do them, instilled very early for me. I also read a lot of kind of UK comics from my sister. So my sister's 8 years older than me, and I was a little sister that just like wanted to be her, and I would like wear the same clothes as her and read the same books as her and same music. And so I was a pain in the ass. But she was a huge creative influence for me. And I think that I loved them and I loved the storytelling of comics, but I felt like I wasn't allowed to. That said, I always made comics on the side. Like when I would doodle, I would come up with sequential visual narratives of, a thing happening, an incident, a story, ordered by a journal comics, that kind of stuff. And even doing my sculpture degree, I had like comics coming through in my sculptural work. And my lecturers were like, "What are you doing? Like, stop doing that. Don't do that. Just do sculpture." Um, and I guess for me, I was going along the sculpture route, and I was actually going to become a welder. I really enjoyed welding, aka dangerous gluing. But then I had a but then I had a car accident, and because of that, I couldn't use my body. Um, and I got an acquired brain injury, and I ended up in bed and having trouble walking for 6 months. And that put me in a very isolated and limited position. And I turned to drawing and stories, and I started animating, and I started doing comics more, um, coming up with stories, but also just express the and process the stuff that I was coming through. And I think that I really fell in love with what I call story medicine. Um, and to me, story medicine is not just necessarily autobiographical or wholesome stuff. It can also be like really dark humor. It can be comedy. It can be fantasy that deals with anxieties. But this concept that stories can carry sort of wisdoms, even in really deranged forms, right? That give us hope, that keep us alive, that make us feel not alone in experience and, whatever kind of the texture of stuff we're dealing with. And I think that was really motivating for me. And I felt a spark with that I didn't feel with making just images or just objects with sculpture. There's something about images, time, and words that really does it for me. So I definitely think I may not have ever actually made comics proper if I hadn't been derailed, so to speak, um, which is interesting, you know. And even now, I
Yeah.
still sometimes have my sort of hierarchies come up around comics. Like when I meet people that I don't like, I have a lot of friends who are prose writers, like literary people, and also fine artists. And sometimes when people ask me, oh, what do you do? And I say, oh, I'm a comic artist, I make comics, stories. I still feel that little bit like, and if you say, oh, I'm a poet or I'm a dancer or I make theater, I feel like you don't get the same. I feel like those are different respected forms, but I still feel like there's a lot of prejudice with comics that even I have to fight. And so I feel also like that's something that motivates me quite a lot to just like toot the horn of comics for people that don't know how good they are.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think I used to feel that way more. I feel that way less now.
Yeah.
And I think that in the US it's become more accepted. But then
Mm,
the reason why is because a lot of memoir comics got really popular here. And so now everybody thinks everything's a nonfiction, like I will be asked if my work is autobiographical, and I'm like, have you read my work?
mm.
You know? But it does feel good not to have to fight that battle. So I hope that Australia comes along soon
Yeah.
because it's annoying to have those conversations over and over again. At a certain point, don't you find it kind of like, "Ugh, I have to explain this again? Like,
Yeah, that's
I
actually
hate
something
this
that I
again?"
felt very happy with is like at least in Australia, typically if you make a comic or a graphic novel, you end up speaking at comics festivals and you end up speaking to other comic artists, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But a few of us in the community here are always like wanting to push for comics to be included in literary festivals because it is a art form, it is a literary form that is just slightly different, like poetry, etc. And there's great work being made, and it's just annoying that it's kind of consistently not included. And so 2 weeks ago, I went to the Sydney Writers Festival, which is one of the bigger festivals here. And it felt amazing. Like most festivals don't have money, but this is one of the festivals that can like pay to fly you. They pay for your accommodation, they feed you, they drive you around. And, that kind of experience for a non-A-list author is not very familiar. So I felt really like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. And it was so exciting to be included in events with other authors that make other types of work where the conversation was not so comics aren't for kids anymore. The questions were, talk to me about your form, the way that you do this, like how does that work for you? Talk about your process. And one of the events that I loved was with another writer, Yumna Kassab, who had a book about everything, and I had my book about eventually everything connects, and we actually had a discussion about how insane it is to think you can write a book about everything because that's a very like taboo, stupid thing to do. Like I remember people cautioning me and saying, like, don't write a book about everything. That's a bit arrogant and like futile. And it was just so exciting to talk cross medium, cross form with another author and be taken like vaguely seriously. Um, and I'm like, I hope that all comic artists can feel that way, you know, because I feel
Yeah.
it's that thing of like you want to take work seriously, you also don't want to take it too seriously. But it's nice to have had that taste of slightly more evolved ways of thinking about and talking about graphic literature. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah.
agree. And I guess I'm surprised that it's new to include comics makers at literary festivals
I
because
don't
it's
know that it's
been
new. I don't know that it's new. I think that it's just there are pressures around it of how big is the market segment of readership for those books?
right.
Is it worth including them in a festival because will the tickets sell? Like that
Yeah,
kind
of
of
course. It's
stuff.
always a money.
Yeah, so I don't think it's new, but I think that there are genuine pressures that prevent it from happening that suck. And it feels like a bit of a miracle when it is included, which is bad, but
Maybe that will be more common though going forward. I will say
Hopefully.
in the US it's definitely become much more common. Like
Yeah.
I end up at literary festivals frequently. I actually turned down Miami Book Fair last year, which I've been to before. I turned
Yeah.
it down because I was exhausted from book touring and teaching at the same time. That was the main reason. I just needed to put a stop to my travel for a while, but also like I didn't want to go to Florida.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did not want to go to Miami. And then I found out that Thurston Moore was going to be there talking about his book, and
Mm.
I'm a huge fan of his music and also his memoirs, one of my favorite memoirs, period, that I've ever read. So I was like, oh fuck, I could have been, but it's okay. It's fine. I'm
Do you have a copy of Victory Parade there that you can
I
show us?
do. Yeah, unfortunately, the English language copy is downstairs. What I have is the French copy, which is basically the same
Oh.
cover. The type treatment on the French copy is not as interesting, and the size is a little smaller, but it's basically the same
Mm.
otherwise.
How
Yeah.
long did it take you to make this?
Let's see. I pitched the book in June of 2016. Well, no, I got the book deal in June of 2016. I started working on it in November of 2016. And then I delivered it in, I think, August or September of 2023.
Yeah.
And in between, there was I was teaching, I was in a band, there was a global pandemic that I was parenting through. We
Mm.
moved to another part of the country in the middle of that. I made a lot of other work because I had to do a lot of commission work for money.
Mm.
Uh, so it took a long time. I found out after the fact from my agent that my editor was very forgiving of how long it was taking to me. At one point, she said, "You can't rush art."
Mm.
But my agent was like, "Oh yeah, she was calling me and breathing down my neck all the time, stressing out." And I think, my reaction to that is like, pay me more and I'll work faster. And I don't mean it in a transactional mercenary way, but
Yeah.
like, it's just brass tacks. Like, I gotta make a living,
Yeah.
Like, you can't expect me to like not say yes to other work. I have to.
I think that that is such an important point that you bring up because when I tell people that my book took 8 years, they just go, "Oh God, ugh,
How long
yuck."
do people think books take? I mean,
Yeah,
books, movies, records, they take a long time to make.
they take time. It's a big commitment, and I think that to your point, uh, managing paying for things and life and working and keeping everything afloat means that you slow down. Like, just the mechanics of living an adult life make art making slower, particularly if you're also a parent, particularly also if you have a full-time job, if you're a carer, if list off
Any kind of care of
list off that stuff.
anyone,
Yeah, list off
parent
the
or
stuff.
someone else.
Exactly. And I think that that's just a reality that it's good to factor in. And also, to me, this also dovetails into how important getting arts grants have been for me. My book has got probably like $100,000 worth of literary grants in
Oh,
it.
that's great.
And I applied for those to get money to take time off work because I was just like, if I don't get some windows of time here, this will take over a decade to produce.
And then
Um,
you'll be a different person at the end of it than you were when you started it, which is like a whole thing.
it's a whole thing. I actually remember having this conversation with Chris Gooch where he said, like, Sarah, how can you take so long to make a work? Because haven't you changed? And I'm like, yeah. And it's a bit weird. And he was saying that part of why he works the way that he works, which is very quick, is to manage that exact thing because he just like, after 2 years, he's kind of like, I'm done. I'm done with this one.
I wish I could work that way. I will say lately I've been doing these pen drawings. Do I have them in here? Yeah, actually, hang on.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
please.
go get them.
Yeah, love that.
Well, so I've been feeling like I want to take a real break from comics since I
Mm,
finished Victory Parade. Now,
mm,
at this point, this is almost 2 years ago. Um, and I have, well, a whole bunch of things have happened. So just naturally wanting to give myself a rest, the natural ebb and flow of ideas, like needing some time after making a big project. But there was this thing that just because of global politics and calamity,
Mm,
it has really in some of the things that have happened in the past year have taken the wind out of my sails with some ideas too.
mm,
You know what it really was? I have this idea for my next graphic novel, and I was very jazzed up about it and really excited and just thought, I'll take a couple of years off and then I'll paint and do other stuff and then I'll come back and I'll do that book.
mm,
And something happened when I saw the images of the hospital in Gaza burning,
mm,
people with IVs in their arms burning.
mm,
I suddenly just me having any ideas at all just felt obscene.
mm, mm, mm.
Uh, and it's not like any other war that is happening right now is any less brutal. The one in Ukraine is also really like very feels very personal
Yes.
for me in a lot of ways. But to say nothing of the shit that is happening in my own country or anyone else, like everywhere, right? It's everything's on fire. So that also kind of changed my relationship with my own ideas because when you do a book, you start in one place, the world is also in that place.
Yeah.
The world is in a completely different place when you finish a book that takes 8 years, you know? Um, so
Mm,
then what I don't know if this is like the direction my work took. I'm not necessarily drawing a connection between the two at all. Um, I started thinking about, well, I feel like I'm talking in a really fragmentary way about my own work for what it's worth. I'm kind of exhausted today. I had this really weird day where I could not wake up.
oh
So
yeah, yeah.
this is really weird. So my brain is a little bit like loosey-goosey right now.
Well, I'm loving what you're saying. So could please,
Okay. I
please
hope it
continue.
makes sense.
Oh
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Well, so, I feel like I've been sort of like writing fictional comics, like writing and drawing my way through the 20th century in New
Mm,
York.
yeah.
And so the third book, and I'm still going to do it at some point.
Mm,
Uh, I'm seeing it as the third book in a trilogy about New York and set in the 80s and this stuff. But then like I was on a train back from a book event in Philadelphia and I was watching a documentary on the train about one of my favorite bands, this band called Slint.
mm,
Uh, and it just immediately brought back a really visceral memory of the subculture that existed immediately before the internet in the
mm,
90s, in the 80s and 90s, the sort of like very local underground subculture in whatever town you were in of house shows and zines and analog underground culture and the kind of people that you would find in those scenes.
mm.
And I was also like, I was thinking sort of, we were having that conversation, we were texting each other the other day about ex-boyfriend sheets. So wait, so is this video going to be like available for people to watch too? Okay,
I
so
believe so. Yeah, yeah.
for anyone who's hearing this interview, Sarah and I were talking about uh, the sheets of our exes because I was the context being I was doing this painting and I was sort of thinking like I should put one of those like gross sheet patterns that one of my ex-boyfriends had would have had in the 90s in this painting. And so I was polling some of my friends about like what are some sheet patterns you remember from the time? And the only one that I could call to mind of a that a boyfriend had was so gross I couldn't imagine painting it. And then you were like, I had a boyfriend who didn't even have sheets.
Yeah, yeah. Huh?
File.
It was bad.
So I was just
Yeah.
having these sort of like all like swoony, a combination of swoony and grossed out memories of like cute, unreliable men
Mm-mm-mm.
in
Yeah,
rock bands,
yeah, yeah.
And then I remember thinking, oh shit, am I gonna have to do a comic set in the 90s now? Instead, what I started doing was just I started doing really simple ballpoint and uniball pen drawings where
Ooh.
I just decided I'm just gonna draw and I'm not gonna think about this as part of a longer story. I'm not going to put any text in except for the first one I did,
Oh, wow. Yep.
this is the house band of whatever this concept is going to be.
That's awesome.
But I started doing all of these just sort of like excavating memories that may or may not be really even mine, right? Like I think that was
Mm.
one of the first ones. I don't know if you can really
Oh,
see it very well.
wow. Oh my gosh, I love those legs and feet. Look at those shoes.
Yeah, those are the boots my first boyfriend mailed me as a birthday present.
They're
They were
crazy.
the best.
How does it feel working in ballpoint as someone that usually works with very liquid mediums?
Well, I'll tell you, I've drawn a lot in ballpoint because I had two kind of master figure drawing teachers. There's a ton of drawings in here. Also Uniball, the Onyx
Oh yeah,
Uniball, which
yep.
is a beautiful and reliable pen. It looks like that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that's nice.
so I had a really great
Um,
figure drawing teacher in my freshman year of art school who made us draw with a ballpoint pen. And it
mm,
was a very specific technique that I have since taught where you get a large piece of paper, um, make a 1 inch border,
mm.
and then she would have us do one single pose for 3 hours with a ballpoint pen, and she would make us measure all the time with a locked elbow,
Ooh,
using the vertical or the horizontal axis of the pen as the measurement tool.
wow.
And the result was you sort of are creating a very organic, it's not really a grid, but it's not a grid that
Mm.
this dimensional form is existing in. And I actually really like drawing with a pen. I don't like drawing with a dip pen, like drawing comics with a nib, you know?
Ah,
I know some people really love that.
yeah. Why don't you like that?
But it's funny. Craig Thompson has talked about this too, and he and I discussed it as well. It's just like it is scratchy and
Hmm.
not flowing. It doesn't like when you know this because you work in a brush and ink sometimes too, right?
Yeah, I
It's
do. Yeah.
it's very fluid and it moves with the musculature of your arm. It
Mm,
doesn't resist in the same way.
yeah.
But a ballpoint pen, but this is the thing. So I'm not sure I could do comics in a ballpoint or a uniball, but I kind of want to try.
Mm,
So Craig was here earlier this spring on book tour, and he stayed with me for a couple days, and I did a little bookstore event with him, and we were both just like, and I bet you could relate to this too. I'm curious what you would say about this as well. We both felt like, "Oh, God, I cannot spend the next 8 years working on another book. Like I can't do this again." Do you think you could do that again?
I think I have developed amnesia now. When people talk about birthing and having children, and they talk about just the absolute crucible and fire of the experience, and then the kind of weird amnesia that you have afterwards, I'm like, I think that that kind of mechanism applies in many areas of life. And I think finishing the physical book, I felt good. Doing the touring felt absolutely grueling in a way that I had underestimated the toll that that would take on me. Um, and then I felt very much like I don't know if I'll do that again. But in the last month, I've been having a lot of ideas for another book. So I'm like, we'll see. We'll see. Um, I think for me,
Was your
it's more,
response to that like, "Oh no, an idea"?
I felt more just like, oh, okay, here we go. I think it's just like the idea needs to have a certain amount of spark and weight and breadth to it for me to go, okay, this is worth all of that, you know?
Yeah.
But I do definitely feel like the experience of touring and selling and promoting work is a weird one. And I quite enjoy being a show pony and being like, look at this thing, let's talk about the thing, let's talk about ideas, let's meet people. I enjoy that, but I also find elements of the process strangely humiliating, exposing, and disappointing, which everyone I've talked to can relate to. Um, and so I feel like the production end of making a graphic, sorry, not the production, the promoting end of making a graphic novel, I'd want to think really differently about how I approach that because yeah, it's a lot of effort and energy, and sometimes it's got diminishing returns, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, but I also feel like um I keep trying to think about how to talk about this diplomatically, um, because I understand the pressures that publishers and marketing people are under. But I feel like with my book, it came out in Australia and I toured it and had launches and blah blah blah. And then the year after, in 2024, I did a tour to the UK and Europe and then also the US. And I feel like with the US, because my publisher in the US was very small, um, they couldn't give me the support that I had hoped for, and that wasn't fully clear. And so my US book tour ended up being very much a grassroots scrabbling uh, for trying to find signals and bookstores, etc. And I actually feel like it would not have happened without you, Leela, and also Tom,
No.
and also Aleri Harris, because I'd missed all the cutoffs for festivals. I didn't have connections here and there. My publisher didn't have connections here and there. And I just absolutely had to, ask all the people that I knew if they knew who I could talk to. And so all the work, because I feel like they're from the outside, when you see someone launch a book and promote the book, you don't actually know how they got any of those connections or opportunities. And it can seem like the publisher has just done that. And sometimes they have. I think it depends again on how much money the book can make and how well known the author is and various factors like that. But also sometimes it is the author scrabbling around wildly in the bushes trying to connect with people, which was my case. And just the optics of that stuff can like look really fun and awesome, but the reality of the amount of work is that it's huge. And it's like, yeah, without you, Leela, I just don't know how I would have connected with various people and various
Oh, wow. I did
bookstores.
not know that.
Yeah, and it's like even going to like Million Year Picnic in Boston, like I would not have known to go there without you saying go there because you used to sell comics there.
To
And
work there, yeah. Were they
yeah,
nice to you?
they were so lovely to me. Tony was
Good.
so
Tony is
genuine.
so delightful. Tony is the sweetest man.
Yeah, and he, told me all this history about comics makers and all the goss and like it was fabulous, but it's like I would not have known. Um, I would not have known or been able to connect with these different bookstores, places, festivals, people, etc. And and like going to Sarah Glidden's house and going to a drawing night there with her and connecting with her. Like I wouldn't have connected with her without you and without her being connected with Comic Art Workshop, like all this sort of stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
she was supposed to teach there. I think it might have even been the second time it ran, but she was
yeah,
pregnant.
2017. Yeah.
She was worried about Zika,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
had to
Um,
cancel.
so
I
that
was
was
so sad for her, but
Yeah, it was sad. That was a really intense trip. So I think that she made the right call to not go because I think that yeah, being pregnant and stressed about Zika plus the reality of that trip would have probably just been like a lot. Um, but yeah, I think actually making a book, I feel more good about like just the hard work of writing. Whereas the like public facing stuff, I have quite complex feelings about, even though I actually quite like performing, connecting, presenting, etc. How do you find that stuff, that side of bookmaking?
well, the public facing stuff. I
Yeah.
think I think I'm in a transition about it that I haven't fully acknowledged yet, where it's hard for me. I'm having a hard time. I have to keep reminding myself, like, okay, I don't actually like this as much as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's possible that I need to pull back on a lot of
Yep.
this stuff. because it used to be there was this long period where I would get invited to things and I'd be like, oh, wow,
Yep.
this is novel. I mean, when it first started happening, it was, let's see, right when Untersagen came out in
Yeah.
2012, which was the worst year of my life, categorically. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it was also the first year that we were living outside of, we had left New York City and moved to Gainesville, Florida. And so suddenly I had people flying me all over the place from my little small town. And so it was a way to, uh, at first, I went on book tour 5 months after my first child died.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the way to see people who I loved who lived in different places that I couldn't normally get to and couldn't afford to go to myself. And basically like get support and be with friends. And then after that, it started to be just a thing. People would start inviting me places, even like I went to this amazing literary festival in the Netherlands. Uh, when was that? I'm trying to think if that was before. Yes, it was before Comic Arts Workshop. It was before Australia. Um, so for a long time, it was like kind of glamorous and fun, and I'm like, oh, I'm like this international jet-setting author. This is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Comics really gets you into a lot of really interesting places. I mean, I wouldn't have gone to Australia if not for comics, right? Like
True.
I think CAW had a grant to bring us over, which was like the most amazing
Yeah.
experience. And you guys all were the most amazing, welcoming bunch of people. You took such good care of us, and it was like we suddenly had all these new friends, basically,
Mm-hmm.
in this amazing place. And also Australia rules, and that's a whole other thing that put a pin in that. I want to come back to that, how amazing Australia is. But so I really loved it for a long time. And then with Victory Parade, I think, I'm older. My body is not the same as it used to be. Like I am a little more decrepit,
Mm-hmm.
injuries and repetitive use stuff, and just, my body being 10 years older now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, More than that, it's like it's my brain. I'm
Mm.
realizing how much I just really want to be, how much I need more restorative time than I used to.
Yeah.
So when Victory Parade came out, I wasn't teaching full time, but I was about to be. I was teaching a lot. I was adjuncting last year, and I think, let's see, it was before I even knew that I had the full-time position. So I don't know how it works in Australia. In the US with academic jobs, if it's a full-time position with tenure track, um, you go through an academic search, and it's like a long process. You apply for the job, you get a preliminary interview, and then if you're a finalist, you get a second interview where you're there for the whole day. It's like a campus visit. You
Oh
go
wow.
all day, you do like a sample critique with somebody else's class, you
Mm.
do all these different interviews with different people. It's like a 12-hour day.
Wow.
Um, so often, like if they'll bring applicants from other parts of the country to do that, but in this case, I already worked there, so I knew everybody or almost everyone I was meeting. But it was still very exhausting.
Mm.
So I was in this like in this professional place when my book came out that was starting to get very focused on my academic job.
Mm-hmm.
And and then like do these crazy things. Like I remember the book launched in April of last year. I went down to New York. This guy who at the time was kind of selling some of my original, sort of representing me, the gallery representation, but he doesn't have a gallery right now. So I'm um, not really working with him anymore, all very amicably. But he did a really nice thing and set me up a pop-up art show at
Mm.
this kind of interesting space in Lower Manhattan. But I was really sick. So I'm
Oh,
like sitting there signing books for people. I didn't have COVID, but I had one of those colds where you're just like hot garbage. Like
yeah. Yeah.
wearing a mask and sweating bullets. And I
Oh
was wearing like a plastic, like a pleather dress, like this
no,
fake
no,
leather dress.
no.
So I
Ah,
looked both cute and insane. Um,
cute
and
and
the
insane.
line, yeah, the line of people waiting to have their book signed was like, there used to be this show called This Is Your Life,
Oh
and it'd be
yeah,
like
yeah,
all these
yeah.
guys in your life. It was like that. It's like, here's
Wow.
this person. that you knew in Boston in 1993, and here's like half of your former belly dance friends, and here's like, all these people. But I'm like, I was getting sicker and sicker as the night went
Oh,
on, and I'm like sort of listening to the side.
oh,
And then I think, I was in New York for a couple of days, sort of recuperating from that. Took a train back to Providence, taught my graphic novel class, and then got on a plane to LA that night
oh,
for
Leela.
a bunch of book events.
Oh God.
And that was when I started to realize, like, okay, I don't bounce back from this
Yeah,
kind of thing as quickly as I
yeah,
used to.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I feel like I'm starting to feel a little more comfortable turning down things if I feel like it's not going to be worth my time. Like,
yeah,
well, I don't think I need to fly to this place and speak to 12 people
yeah,
or 5 people or whatever.
yeah.
But I will say yes
Mm,
to, like, I went to Angoulême and then spent a week in
mm.
Paris, and I'm sure as shit not going to say no to that. And that was delightful in
Yeah,
every way.
yeah.
Although I don't have to go to Angoulême again.
Oh, why?
Well, and now I've been maybe 7 times,
Oh my
five,
God.
six. I've been a lot.
Yeah,
I remember when I first started going to Angoulême, it felt so magical. Like the
yeah,
town felt magic. And now I'm like, ugh, it's just another small town. I sort of like get small town blues really easily these days. Like, I just want to be in a big city or the country. Like, I don't need the in between. Um, I think I've just been enough. I
yeah,
don't think it has the same glamour to me anymore. Like,
mm,
I was thrilled to have been there, and I think I
yeah,
could skip it from now on. It's okay.
yeah. I mean, look, the way you've talked about it, I think it all sounds reasonable. It's like I've never been to Angoulême, and so to me, it's like this like ha ha thing. I actually feel like that's definitely a thing with like making books and opportunities is that if you can't get them, you want them so bad, and then once you
Yeah.
have them, they're not quite what you thought they would be, even if they're still good.
Or
So
they have their
it's like,
limits, you know?
and exactly what you said of like, how hard are you willing to push yourself for what, and to
Yeah.
at what cost to your well-being, and does that even
Yes,
make any sense? You
that's
know?
the question. That's the question. What is serving you and what is maybe getting in the way of your studio practice?
Yeah, yeah, um,
I mean, at this
yeah,
point, I want to prioritize um, both rest and also creation.
yes, yeah.
To say nothing of teaching and my family and physical exercise, which is really important to me.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
the whole part about having kids and a full-time job.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I think it's really good to talk about because I think for a lot of people, like your career and the things that you've been able to do are like really aspirational for a lot of people, myself included. Like I'm like, oh, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do this, da 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 da. Um, but once you have done them, it's like, what does that mean? And what do you actually really care about? And you need to follow that, right?
Yeah, and it also makes me think of something Nico Case said in an interview once where she said, I don't remember the exact quote, but she was like, yeah, we all are people who still have to like go home and wash our dishes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I mean,
yeah,
I think if there's anything, if I'm pleased and surprised to hear that my career looks aspirational to people. If anything, what I hope it inspires people to want to do is, I don't know. Actually, let me rewind a little bit. So I feel like I'm a big cheerleader for being defiant about and taking your artistic path and
yeah.
like not like very unapologetically.
Mm, mm.
But I also feel like I'm not sure that I can say that as advice to anybody in a world where people really, in a really inequitable world. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like the privileges that I've been afforded that have allowed me to have this life, the people who have supported me in it, and the unearned and unasked for privileges too.
Mm-mm.
are things that, I'd be blind if I just said, well, anybody can do this, like, but I do think that anyone and everyone can make art and do that.
Yeah.
I'm not being very articulate right now,
I
but
feel
I
like
guess
I feel like what you said about like unapologetically, like regardless of the factors of privilege or disadvantage that are happening in a person's life, that like thread of like unapologetically doing this thing that calls to you in the way that you can is really powerful. And like particularly when things are really dark and fucked, like that's like a little pilot light or something that's like in you. And I feel like optics aside, like the optics of your career, you make really powerful, strong, like punch in the face like work that like is so exciting to me because it I don't want to say it's like fuck you, but like you know what I mean? Like there's some kind of like
it's
fire,
confrontational. Yeah. I
like
mean,
there's
I
this
came out of a
feeling.
time, I came of
Yeah.
age as an artist in a time when being confrontational in your work was very highly valued. So
Hmm.
there was a lot of subculture that was extremely confrontational. 80s and 90s underground art was like bloodletting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And to the point of sometimes being just like, I think of this great Steve Albini quote that
Mm,
I think was like a throwaway line in a letter that he wrote to a magazine,
mm,
or maybe it was a review, a record or concert review where he was writing about different bands and he described one band as trying so hard to be transgressive that how did he say exactly? It's like they're yelling at you, looky over here, I'm wallowing in filth. I mean, Steve Albini was like the king of the kind of succinct summing up,
yeah,
the
yeah,
brutal summing up. Um, but I mean, to me, that feels like the highest calling, like making
yeah.
something that feels, but I will say, I kicked myself off of the path of that for a long time. So in that time when I was kind of not sure what I was doing, and when I became an illustrator, all of those years of being an illustrator were like me suppressing that completely.
Ooh,
And
interesting.
uh, well, because I had to do editorial illustration, like illustrating gift books about gardening or the history of the skirt. That was another one. And that was really fun and it paid the bills. I could
Yeah,
never work that way now. Or editorial illustrations, like illustrating stuff for the New York Times, all very toothless
yeah, yeah.
and I was not even that good of an illustrator, I don't think. Because I think when you are really repressing parts of yourself, it shows.
Mm,
And when I started working in watercolor again, that's when all that punch in the face stuff came back. But preceding that, I remember like there was sort of a moment of unlocking that came. And I kind of want to turn this topic onto you as well as a question. This is really about other artists and how they unlock our own
mm,
work and creativity. So I remember after my first child was born, I got really into Nico Case's music.
mm,
And she was my gateway back into rock and roll and Western music in general after a long time of having stepped away from it, even though it had been very important to me in the past. Um, but I remember listening to her music and thinking, like, feeling it felt so raw to me, even though she's such a controlled and kind of perfect singer.
mm,
And the music is really beautiful. It's not noisy. And
mm,
I really generally prefer much harsher music than that now,
mm.
and before that. But there was something in her music that it hit me at this visceral place. And I remember thinking, if I could make my comics even half this powerful, if I could make people feel the way this music makes me feel with my work, that's what I want to do. I want that power. And I don't have it now. Like the work I'm doing now as an illustrator doesn't grant me access to that. I felt like it was in me somewhere and I just couldn't figure out how to get to it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And you feel like the music, because like you've talked about putting on music that you paint to. Do you feel like music is like a big kind of like portal for you to access that kind of space and energy when you're working?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, making music, making art, these are life and death to me.
Mm, mm, mm,
I don't think that there's any
mm.
I think that what is the purpose of being alive if not
Yeah,
to make things,
yeah,
bring
yeah.
things into existence that weren't there before in some way? Everything else is just survival.
Mm.
But I
That's
don't mean to, I'm
interesting.
not trying to be dismissive of other people's professions.
Yeah, yeah. Look, and I think that everyone has different things that they're attracted to. You know, like that for some people doing editorial illustrations is their language, is their poetry, is the space that they
Totally.
come alive. Like they need the constraint of a brief. They need certain shapes to kind of, you know.
And
Um,
I did too for a long time. I needed those parameters. But
yeah.
some people are capable of doing really deep work in that
Yeah.
and making, and that's a whole other conversation, whatever's happening to the illustration market these days. That's a whole
Boy.
other.
Oh,
But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know what world I'm sending our students into, but we're trying to, I mean, prepare them to do a lot of different things, basically. Like, which
Yeah.
is what all of us have to do all the time. We have to be able to be really agile. But in any case,
Yeah.
yeah, music is essential. I mean, also, you were talking about your book tour here in the US and being needing people like me or Tom, just needing connections to
Yeah.
other people. Comics is like punk rock. I mean, it is kind of it's a branch of punk, right? Like we look out for each other.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
good to each other. You'll always have a place to sleep in multiple countries if you have friends in comics,
It's
you know?
absolutely true. It's absolutely true. Yeah, it's
So,
so
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh no, I just like I'm really I'm so interested in this point that you bring up about like how do you know if you're repressing your creative I don't know the right words for this stuff. Like how do you know if you're stifling your creative impulse into something that's like neat and tidy, but that's too a little bit too
Yeah.
small for you, versus like how do you tap into this current where you feel alive and awake and it's not necessarily a positive thing, like it can be quite a dark and gritty and toothy thing, or it can be very
Yes.
lyrical and beautiful. Like there's all different kinds of tones that occur for people. But there's definitely some kind of like energy that happens, and it can be like for me, I often work to music, but I find the thing that inspires that energy or those sparks for me is very much lived experience. So I've started making a bunch of um sort of offshoot comics of this character that emerged from my book that's called Slut Hulk. Um,
Oh,
in the
you know
book
I love Slut Hulk.
yeah, and like in the book,
Uh,
Slut Hulk emerges when I'm being slut shamed at high school, and Slut Hulk is this kind of embodiment of female rage, desire, um, fury, power, etc. And I had a few experiences last year that were just like very pedestrian, gendered problematic interactions that just really called the spirit of Slut Hulk forward. Um, and so, you know, that's a whole thread that I'm exploring at the moment is this like entity that is Slut Hulk that can enter anybody when they're having a shit situation and can support them to have like erotic corrective experiences.
oh,
And so
yes.
it's like kind of deranged sexual but corrective things. And like I have a comic with her that I made where like she entered me when I was in a 3-point turn road rage incident with a really awful man, and she picks up his car and like crushes it in her vagina and then pulls it down the road.
Wait, did you draw that? I feel like I saw that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel
So I
like
have
you
a
showed
few of
that to
these,
us.
but it's like because I give myself a lot of creative freedom to just go with things that come up. Like I'm not a genre comic writer. I don't read that many kind of superhero, Marvel, Hulk comics or anything, but this thing just emerged for me and I was like, off she goes. And so a big thing for me with my creative process is like allowing the emergence of things and then following them through, even if they're quite divergent to my style or what I usually do, and like with Slut Hulk, that's something that I've struggled with of like I usually make autobiographical work, I usually don't do genre work. What am I doing? Drawing muscles is really hard. Holy crap, like bodies and muscles and action shots. I was like, oh boy, this is really beyond my skill level. Um, but I just was like, this is where the aliveness is. So, okay.
Well, I think you just hit it on the head. Also, I would say one could make the argument that you're still working autobiographically because you're working with your interiority, right? Slut Hulk is very much from your interior.
Mm.
I love Slut Hulk.
A lot of people
When
do. And I actually,
yeah,
when I've done comic, so I did a reading at the Sydney Writers Festival for queer stories where I told the story of Slut Hulk and I was able to embody and perform Slut Hulk. And I love it. I might do Slut Hulk the stage play.
oh
Um,
yeah, oh yeah, I
yeah,
love it.
but
I kind of want there to be like a 50-foot tall Slut Hulk statue, you know?
yeah, yeah.
She's
Um,
such a good mascot. But I want to flag what you said about that finding that thing that's alive, you
yeah.
know? So I don't know if we've talked about there's this woman named Kasia Urbaniak who runs a school in New York called the Academy,
Oh,
and
yeah.
she's great. Um, I learned I took some of her classes over the years, and I learned so much about just a lot of skills. I don't know how to describe what she does. It's training in communication in certain ways, but I felt like what I got from that was learning how to really read myself and my own body reactions to people in a way that allowed me to have better boundaries and more personal power, and not power in a negative way, but I mean like a presence,
Mm.
taking up my size amount of space, not being too small.
Mm.
But I'm really being very reductive because she has a lot of really interesting things to say and interesting methodologies and very specific exercises and stuff like that. But one thing that she said that I wrote down in one of her classes, and I wrote it down on a note card and stuck it over my desk, is don't ask whether something is good or bad, ask whether it's alive or dead.
Mm.
So navigating by feeling, is there life force here? I think is really valuable,
Yeah.
especially I think for artists, because I think like, you know, asking yourself whether something is good or bad as an artist, if you're doing it technically, like, oh, am I doing a good job or not? That's depressing and kind of brings you back to your art school trauma. If you're asking whether something is morally good or bad as an artist, you're totally asking the wrong questions.
Yeah.
Like, that's the wrong framework.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, unless you're making a Nazi propaganda poster for money, which none of us are doing. I'm just trying to think of a really out there. In what
Yeah.
scenario could you contradict my words? That's the only one I can think of.
Yeah.
Not you personally, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Just looking for, is this thing I'm working on alive? Do I feel connected to it? Is it making me feel like I'm alive? Or does it feel kind of dead on arrival?
And I love that. I love that. So I feel like that's a really powerful enabling quote for anybody. And I also feel like to your point of like, is the work good? Is the work bad? You can argue either way for anybody's work, right? So it's an
Yes.
absolute like stupid question to be asking. And it's something that I faced a lot when I was making my book because my book is quite dense. Like it is not a beautiful cinematic paced book. It's dense, there's a lot of information, it's all over the place. And for a long time, I was beating myself up that my work did not look more like this person's work or that person's work. And that was actually just a way for me to self-sabotage, I realized. And so I had to actually look out for other authors that make work more like mine, that's busy with a lot going on. So I'd be like, all right, look at Linda Barry. her work is so busy. Is it good? Is it meaningful? To me, yes. Look at Sam Warman, busy work, a lot in there. Is it good and meaningful to me? Yes. Other people can
Yeah.
argue that it's not good, whatever. But just finding kind of like a constellation of other makers that make work that is more like mine to give me permission to make my work rather than comparing my work to like abstract, spacious work. It,
Right, like I wonder who like well, you're a maximalist in
yeah.
some cases, but you're also really good at the succinct drawing. You have like you really have a mastery of the language of cartooning
Mm-mm. Oh,
as a
thanks.
drawing style. You
I
know,
don't think
like
about that, so thanks. Yeah.
well, think
Um,
about like the language of inking, the language of movement through time in the sequence of comics through line drawing is something that you do really well, and
mm,
it organizes the information. Because yes, your book is really information dense, but that information is within the framework of your drawing style.
mm. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
feel like
And
your
I no.
sculpture training? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I just think that like the anxieties of is my work good? Is it to my taste? You'll
Yeah,
always
that'll just, I feel like that's just going to shut you down,
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
especially if we start to ask if our work is to our own taste, that might be deadly, like,
yeah, yeah.
and I don't know, the work I like and the work I make might be really different.
That is no, exactly, exactly. Because I like work that is quite different to what I actually make, but what I make is actually what comes out of me. Like it is the
Yes.
language that emerges from me that I will continue to refine and develop and hopefully kind of improve or get better over time. But it is what it is, and I enjoy what I enjoy, and like I love color. That's you know, but
Yeah, that's
I love
evident in your
I
work.
love that of like don't ask if it's good or bad, ask if it's alive or dead. And like what do you need to not shut yourself down?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a big part of the unapologetic part of it too, is like, don't shut yourself down. My God.
Yeah, yeah. Um so I'm just really conscious of the time because I think Josh said he wanted us to talk for like 50 minutes and we've gone for an hour and a half. So we should
Yes, we
probably
have.
wrap up. We should probably wrap up.
We should wrap up.
But I really like I love the kind of insights and interests that you have and the like personal journey that you've had with making your work. Um and I kind of have one last question to ask you, which is I feel like in a lot of your work it has a real like toothiness or heaviness that if I was making that in my own work, I would feel nervous to do it. Like I'd be nervous to go there, but you do it so effortlessly in your work and so beautifully as well. So you'll have really macabre things, but it's so beautiful. How do you just not think about that? You just do it? How do
Do you,
you
do you feel like if you were to do it, would you be afraid to go there because of its effect on you, or would you be afraid to go there because you'd be worried about how that would affect the reader?
maybe affecting the reader?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can answer that
Yeah.
probably more easily then because of that. So
Yeah.
I think that partially it comes back to my early socialization as an artist in a time of very confrontational art and music. I was really drawn to a lot of that. I was repelled by some of it. And I think I always had a kind of uh, an awareness that some of it was a little too much. And I think I can be a little too much sometimes too. Like I run that risk as well. So I guess I'm sensitive to it in other people's work.
Mm.
Uh, but I also always wanted to make work that had that kind of similar intensity. I was
Mm.
only ever interested in intensity. It's funny, I was thinking about this the other night. I went to a rock show. This band that I loved years ago and forgot about was playing in my town. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know they'd reunited. So I went to see them, and there was a band that went on before them who were a more popular local band. The band that I went to see is not from here. The
Mm.
band that opened or played on the same bill, they weren't really opening. Um, were really popular in Providence. And so most of the audience was there to see them. And they were great. They were wonderful. But it was sort of like, okay, at a certain point, this kind of, it's pretty, there's a little bit of a pop element to it. And then the other band played. And that was like, okay, whoa, now I really feel it. Like
Mm,
this is very intense, very noisy, it's very drony and very emotional and very unapologetically um, I don't want to say confrontational, but definitely not commercial in any way. And
yeah.
like the guitars were much louder and much dirtier and much more experimental. And that's the kind of thing that really lights me up. And I
Mm,
realized while I was watching that, the corollary to my own work is I really am only interested in experiences as an artist or as an experiencer of art that are very intense. I
mm.
am not interested in the halfway.
Yeah, yeah,
In terms of how it affects the reader, well, you know what? I think that I'm not here to make people comfortable. My
yeah,
work doesn't exist to comfort, except in the way that solidarity is comforting.
yeah.
Um, I am not interested in telling a genteel story about genocide
Mm, mm, mm.
or devastation, war. These are not things that people should be able to have sweet stories about, I don't
Yeah.
think. I'm sorry, that sounds mean, but there's always, it has to be leavened. But I always talk about Holocaust film
Mm,
in
mm.
this context because I think this is kind of an easy way to describe kind of like show where I'm at.
Yeah.
And the comparison I make is Schindler's List versus Seven Beauties.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
have you seen Seven
Yes.
Beauties?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. I'm
Yeah.
so glad I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
have to explain it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I saw that movie and my first reaction to even just the first couple of minutes where there's that footage of planes dropping bombs,
Yeah.
and I think Hitler giving a speech, and then you hear what's his name, Giancarlo Giannini speaking. I think it's him speaking over it and just going, oh yeah, at the end of every sentence. I was literally on my knees screaming while I
Mm.
was watching that in this like
Yeah.
recognition of this is what I want to
Yeah.
make.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like that recognition of the kind of like I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but like the like pressure of the insanity of
Yes.
of it. And I feel like when I think about some of your the really dark stuff in your work, it does this amazing thing where it feels like behind the brain, like not subliminal
Hmm.
or unconscious, but it's this other like non-logical like dream, like it's like the horror dream, the fever dream, this kind of like really, really deep basement stuff. And but
Yeah.
also just as you were talking, I feel like you do this thing where you have this like horrific confronting stuff, but then you have this humor that you just drop in like a little from a little pipette, like boop. And so you'll be in this place, and then there's just this like comedic little that's just so like ah
That, you know what that is? That's my culture. That's Polish Jewish humor.
yeah, yeah, but it's so
I think also a lot of it is cultural and like I'm speaking from the context of American culture, which I think is really dominated by a culture that I don't come from. It's like very white, Christian, Western European, obviously we are many things here, but in
mm,
terms of like the dominant pop culture, and I'm Eastern European.
mm,
And we're like dark humor is like the thing we have.
yeah,
That's not only Jews from Eastern Europe. That's I think that I would say that's probably everybody.
yeah,
And I also feel I realized over the last few years how much being Polish has a like that's my family background,
mm, mm,
how much that has kind of shaped my worldview as much as being American. Like,
mm,
half my family was from Poland, and so there's this like sense of being a small country caught between two big powers and being Jews in that country,
mm, mm.
I don't know, it rests very uneasily with also being American and being from like the big superpower that's like the big boot over half the world.
Yeah, yeah.
It's weird.
It is,
But that sense of humor is like,
yeah,
that's my people.
yeah. I just feel like you do it so well. And I don't want to say that it just does something. Like there's something in that kind of dark humor that just does something that is so, it's not redemptive, but it gives this little something that just is so tasty
Oh,
and
I'm so glad.
like,
I think
yeah,
I
yeah.
think what it is it's like the heart that keeps beating even while something is happening, right? Because you use the word redemptive. I don't know about you. How do you feel about redemptive storytelling? I know
I
we're
don't
supposed to wrap up, but I really
look,
want to ask you.
I have a big, so I'm a person that's like relatively wholesome according to other people. Uh, and I try to be kind and nice and this type of stuff. I believe in like trying to live as morally and ethically as you can and all this kind of stuff. But I am also very drawn to the shadow or the darkness or the exceptions or the like looking at what is happening for real. And I feel like redemptive storytelling can be a little bit like spiritual bypassing sometimes.
Yes, an excellent phrase, spiritual bypassing.
And I
A
also,
really useful one.
yeah, and I also feel like easy answers, I'm very allergic to or cautious of easy answers, because things are generally quite tangled. Like exactly what you were saying about your cultural heritage, just even the entanglement of that is tricky. It
Yeah.
creates tension and friction. And I think that people all people have that, and people that pretend that they don't have that are lying, is my
Hmm.
hot take. Um, but I also feel like there's a book by Maggie Nelson that's called The Art of Cruelty, which I love because I actually find a lot of work that is very moralistic and correct, regardless of whether it's where it sits on the political spectrum, can be a bit dead. Um,
Yeah, very.
and I have conflicting feelings about all this stuff because I think it is important. Like, as someone who's drawn to like philosophy, I think it is important to think about like what does it mean to be ethical? What does it mean to care about other people and the planet and to be good custodians and what you might just say are wholesome questions. But I also feel like there is a lot of wisdom and magic in people that live incredibly countercultural lifestyles or do the wrong thing or like there's a lot of wisdom in spaces that we don't expect. And so yes, the whole concept of redemptive stories seems highly questionable to me. That said, I like story medicine, as in, like, I like to not feel, I like stories that help me feel part of the human experience and not so alone. But to me, that's fundamentally different to redemptive.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I will tell you that when Mouse was banned in one school district in the US a few years
Mm,
ago, it's a huge thing. Um, I went to an online talk with Art Spiegelman talking about that, and he made this point that I was like, yes, thank you for saying that. He
mm,
said, you know, they want a redemptive story, and that's a very Christian
mm.
kind of storytelling and a very particular, not all Christianity either, but a very American kind of particular style of Christian American storytelling, like
Yes.
the redemptive saved person at the end. And this just isn't that. And I will add, I don't think that that is really a Jewish or Eastern European or Ashkenazi, I wouldn't say all Jewish, but definitely like my little
Mm,
corner
mm,
of
mm.
that culture. I just don't think that that is a storytelling tradition for us, the redemptive type of story. I'm not an expert in Eastern European fiction either, but just coming from that part of the world culturally, I feel like that's just really not us exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, having said that, I also, that doesn't mean it's not so binary. It's not like, it's
Yes.
either a redemptive story or it ends in everybody dying either.
Yeah.
But the truth is that life is very heavy and people carry a lot.
Yes.
We carry a lot of joy and humor as well, but we also are full of trauma and heaviness. And so it's always been really important to me to depict that in my work.
Mm, mm,
Uh,
mm.
God, you said something else that I wanted to come back to, and God, now I'm forgetting it.
Ugh.
I mean, also, I'm like, it feels, oh yeah, you were talking about ethics. I mean, there's this great, God, was it Balzac? This quote from Balzac where he said something like, you know what? I'm gonna look it up because you have to hear it the way he said it. We actually have it up on the wall at SAW.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, here we go. It's Flaubert, not Balzac. Be regular and orderly in your life so that you may be violent and original in your work.
Mm.
And so I think I believe really strongly in being an ethical person.
Yeah.
Whether I'm a moral person, I'm not sure, but an ethical person, I really try.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm pretty moral too. But I think in the studio, none of that stuff applies.
Mm-hmm.
I think artists are by nature anarchists.
Mm-hmm.
This is also like this is a whole conversation that I'm preparing to have with a colleague of mine, friend, also. But we're trying to kind of this colleague really wants to talk about ethical considerations for artists, for our grad students. And I think we're going to have some spirited conversations about it because we're coming from really different places. Where
Mm.
I think the artist has zero obligation to consider the feelings of her audience.
Mm.
Obviously there's lines. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm I'm not talking about, I'm not saying what I think a lot of, you see this from a lot of frankly white men, like, well, I should be able to say whatever the fuck I want in any language I want. I'm not saying that at all.
Mm-mm.
I don't believe that actually.
Mm.
Um, but I mean, in terms, so I'm not saying anything as pedestrian as artists should be able to use racist language, which no, I actually do not believe that.
Mm-mm.
What I am saying is I think I don't owe anyone a nice Holocaust story,
Yeah.
or a nice story about being growing up in a female body in a
Mm-mm-mm.
patriarchy. I don't owe anybody a softer version of my rage.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't either.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those are really important distinctions that you make there, and I do think that people conflate. I feel like we literally live in an age of conflation and
Yes.
misunderstanding, and that people are using words to mean different things. And I mean, I could go on about this, but I think that thinking about ethics and morals and priorities and positioning and privilege matter, but when that comes into work and it's really hand-wringing and trying to be correct, similar to what you were saying of you can feel when someone is stifling themselves and their voice. I feel like overly moralistic work can do that, have that same kind of a taste where it's
Yeah.
where it's confined in a way that has somehow limited what it was trying to say. And I feel like this is a really challenging thing for people to work with these days because people are making work with a lot of fear because people say, don't worry about your audience, don't worry about the reception, but people worry about that stuff. People, like when I talk with other makers, they're like, what if I get cancelled? What if I accidentally say the wrong thing? Um, XYZ. And those are real fears. I also feel like that can help keep people on their toes and help people see through biases that they might have. And this is all
Yeah.
getting feedback is good. So, for example, if you're a male writer and you're writing about women and you get some feedback from some female or fem friends, and they're like, the way that you're writing women is really tropey. Like
I
that.
feel like I had an experience like that actually at Comic Arts Workshop, and some of it was like you were one of the people who actually really kind of helped me interrogate some of my own stuff I was coming into storytelling with. We were
Oh,
talking
really?
about, yeah, we were talking about telling stories about other cultures.
Mm,
And I felt like the conversations that you and I had about it really made me kind of reconsider and reframe a lot of the things that I had been raised to think were okay, ways of writing and ways of storytelling that were very accepted in the world that I grew up in, and felt like,
yeah.
oh, wait, okay, maybe that actually isn't really that great. You know,
Like,
maybe
yeah.
maybe this is not actually the way to maybe I need to refresh my thinking about this.
Yeah. I mean, and we all like I think that you can never get that stuff right. We all come with our sets of like this is how it is, this is what this means, and like a bunch of stuff that we overlook because we don't have any lived experience of that. Um, and that
Yeah.
and that's where like community, sharing your work, talking to other people with trust and care.
Yes, trust
Um,
and care being most essential.
yeah, and giving people a good faith read, you know, and being able to talk honestly. Because like even in my book, like there was some stuff in there that I'd written that was like really problematic, and someone flagged that with me, pulled me aside and flagged it with me and said, like, what are you trying to say here? Because did you know that this reads like this? I didn't see it. I absolutely did was I couldn't see it. And I'm so thankful for that call in and that feedback. Um, and yeah, like this stuff is so complex.
It is, but
Yeah.
it's so important. And like I will say the conversations that you and I and some other people had about that in Australia that time were really pivotal for me in that kind of call-in feeling. I mean, nobody was personally calling me in, but it was more like oh, I'm seeing a completely different
Mm,
read on this type of storytelling. And it was really useful. And like you said, it was a good faith conversation. It was not like a, cancellation. I mean, the whole concept of cancel culture too is just one that I feel like got co-opted
mm.
by the right as this pejorative thing when God, who was it? Was it Lindy West who wrote that it's consequences culture? Or was it Roxane Gay? I can't remember. Um,
I'm not sure. Yeah.
like what we're really talking about in the context of Me Too, back
Yeah.
when this was a big topic, was, you're not being canceled, dudes who
Mm,
assaulted women, you're experiencing consequences for real behavior,
yeah.
As artists and storytellers, I there's the school of thought that every writer should be able to write about whatever the hell they want to write about, and if they want to write about another culture, then they should just be able to do that. And I'm not entirely comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I also,
I feel like there are smart and sensitive and informed ways to do that, and then just completely arrogant, unthinking ways to do that.
which are the latter is the way it usually happens. This is a good argument also, like for me, what I am more interested in doing is stepping aside and trying to make room for people
Yeah.
to tell stories. Like, okay, I don't need to be telling a story about X community, like
Yeah.
where that community has people who probably would like a book deal, frankly,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
room at the table,
Yeah. Yeah.
Making Victory Parade was in some ways me trying to stay in my own lane in a
Hmm.
way that was not I didn't feel like I was making myself smaller by doing that.
Yeah.
Now I also feel, that's evolved into like, I'm really tired of talking about the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
we really would, and when I'm talking about it, I'm also trying to talk about it in the context of genocides that have happened since and are still happening now,
Hmm. Hmm.
and trying to think about genocide as a species problem.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
That's
Mm,
a whole other conversation too. Like we are
mm,
at the 2 hour mark,
mm.
um, but God, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is really complex, yeah. But it
Yeah.
is so important. It is so important.
Yeah, I feel like it's important to wrestle with it and think about the implications and also accept the fact that you'll probably get bits wrong and do better next time, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
And like I said, also like if you have the capacity if to make space for or make connections, help facilitate connections for other people, like bring more chairs to the table. Like I only have one butt. I can't sit in all the chairs.
yeah.
I'm
It's
just
also
one
like
butt.
for me with my book, like having a kind of multi-vocal texture, which is like acknowledging that all the ideas that I have had in the book and places that I've been are not just my place. They're layered. And so like in the book, I go to Mount Bogong, which is a really important Aboriginal historical site where different clans would come to feast on bogong moths. And there's to me, a very important cave there called Clogg's Cave, where the first ever insect grinding tool was unearthed. And I could have just talked about that as like, wow, how cool. But it's like, no, I wanted to actually connect in with the archaeologists, the different clan groups that found it and have history there so that I can point to the work that they've done and, the fact that they're trying to protect this site and, all these other, the ecological view around a thing that is both, ecological time-wise and ecological living now. Um, and to me, that's a kind of act of like holding hands or like creating webs between people so that
Yeah.
people can
Yeah.
find people as well. And that is valuable work and, paying credit to thinkers that have come before and that also coexist and like, yeah, I think that's important. Um, yeah, but we should probably wrap up. We've got 2 minutes until it's
Yeah, we should.
I
Every
like
time I
talking
talk
to
to you,
you
I'm just
so
like,
much. So I was
I
like,
just want to hang out with you.
yeah.
I,
But
uh, I wish I could just teleport to Melbourne and meet you for coffee.
yes, it would be so good. And I also just wanted to say thank you to you for being part of my book's journey um, at the inception in 2015, and then also last year when I was touring it in the US, of having me come to RISD and catching up with you and Tom and MR and having dinner, and it was really
Oh, that was so
nice.
delightful. And the students loved you. They had a wonderful time with you. And yeah, I love the full circle nature of that too. Like I
Yeah,
got to see that book when you had that incredible wall of post-it notes with drawings on them.
yeah,
And I think about that all the time. I think about your wall of post-it notes in the dining hall
yeah,
of the penal
yeah,
colony.
yeah.
And
I
then
had
when you
no
came to
idea.
visit, like you had this beautiful finished product.
Mm,
And yeah, it was so fun just hanging out with you and having dinner and like being able to connect and have some time together. And
mm.
again, also to bring you to RISD and have students get to experience you and your work. Just delightful.
Your students are amazing, by the way. I like going and doing the like studio visit. I was just like, oh wow,
Aren't they incredible?
so much talent. Oh my gosh.
Their final projects too. They just did their thesis show, a few weeks ago. And
Mm,
I mean, they're all like balls of stress beforehand
yeah,
leading up to it. It's like so emotionally intense. And then every single one of them just knocked it out of the park. It's
it's awesome.
beautiful work.
It's
I
so
love
good.
them all. I love my
Yeah,
students so much. The undergrads too, they were just like, they're my
yeah,
heart.
so good. Well, I think we should wrap up. It was so nice
Yes.
to talk to you, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, we should just talk sometime. Just we should
Yeah,
keep talking.
yeah,
'Cause I think
yeah.
it's very revitalizing for at least for me to talk to you about work and stuff too. It just like
Mm,
resets me, helps me be back in my artist head.
yeah, yeah. I think it's important to do. All right, I'm going to stop recording. Goodbye,
All right.
everyone.
Bye everybody. Thank
Bye.
you.
How do
All
I?
right, Sarah, let's
Oh, I don't know how to stop it recording.
okay,
Oh, here we
well
go.
then let's
Got it.